Imagine hosting the World Cup for the very first time. Imagine believing this was finally your year. Then imagine the most famous trophy in football disappearing, not after the tournament, not during the final, but months before a single ball had even been kicked. England's World Cup was in danger before it had even begun. The Jules Rimet Trophy, the prize every nation dreamed of lifting, had been stolen. Police searched everywhere. The newspapers exploded with headlines. Football's greatest treasure had vanished. Then, the hero wasn't a detective or a footballer. It was an ordinary dog named Pickles. The little black and white collie sniffed around a garden hedge during an evening walk. Hidden beneath some bushes, wrapped in newspaper, was the World Cup trophy. Against all odds, the tournament had been saved. It felt like the strangest story the World Cup had ever produced. Nobody knew. It was only the beginning, because over the next few weeks, football would witness brutal tackles. One of the biggest shocks in history, the rise of a new superstar, and a goal so controversial that people are still arguing about it almost 60 years later. This is the story of the 1966 FIFA World Cup. Football comes home for decades. England had called itself the home of football. After all, the modern rules of the game had been written there. The Football Association was born there. The biggest clubs in the world played there. Yet, despite all of that, England had never won a World Cup. They hadn't even reached a final. Every 4 years, the same question returned. If England invented football, why can't they win it? Now, history had handed them the perfect opportunity. For the first time ever, England would host the tournament. Every stadium was packed. Every newspaper expected greatness. Every supporter believed this was destiny. But one man refused to let emotions decide anything. England manager Alf Ramsey. Unlike many coaches of the time, Ramsey didn't believe beautiful football won trophies. He believed discipline did. Organization, hard work, patience. His tactical system confused journalists. England played without traditional wingers, something almost unheard of in the 1960s. Critics mocked them. Newspapers gave them a nickname, the Wingless Wonders. Ramsey didn't care. Months before the tournament, he made a prediction that sounded unbelievably arrogant. England will win the World Cup. People laughed. Soon, nobody would be laughing. Brazil chases immortality. While England dreamed of their first title, Brazil dreamed of something even bigger. Immortality. Nobody had ever won 3 World Cups. Nobody had ever won 3 in a row. Brazil could do both. Pelé returned, still only 25 years old, yet already regarded as football's greatest player. His performances in 1958 had shocked the world. His injury in 1962 had nearly ended Brazil's campaign. Now, healthy once again, he wanted to remind everyone why he was the king. Around him stood another remarkable squad. Jairzinho, Gerson, Alcindo, Garrincha. Not quite the same team as 4 years earlier, but still good enough to frighten every opponent. There was just one problem. The rest of the world had learned something. You couldn't stop Pelé with tactics alone. You had to stop him physically. The war against Pelé, Brazil's opening opponents were Bulgaria. Everything started perfectly. Pelé stepped over a free kick, took a short run, then bent the ball beautifully into the top corner. Goal. The stadium erupted. Once again, the greatest player in the world had delivered. But what happened next changed the tournament forever. Bulgarian defenders stopped trying to win the ball. Instead, they targeted Pelé himself. Heavy tackles, late challenges, kicks from behind, one after another. Each time, the referee waved play on. There were no yellow cards, no protection. Football in the 1960s was brutal. Creative players often paid the price. Pelé finished the match, but he limped off the pitch. Brazil had won, yet nobody inside the dressing room celebrated. They knew something wasn't right. The world's greatest player was hurt, and things were only about to get worse. The champions begin to fall. Brazil's next match came against Hungary, one of Europe's strongest teams. Pelé couldn't play. The injury from Bulgaria was too severe. Without him, Brazil looked completely different, less dangerous, less confident. Hungary sensed it immediately. They attacked with purpose. Brazil fought bravely, but for the first time since 1954, the defending champions looked ordinary. Hungary won. Suddenly, Brazil stood on the edge of elimination. Everything came down to one final group match. Portugal, a rising force, led by a man quickly becoming one of football's brightest stars, Eusébio. Brazil had no choice. Pelé would have to play, whether he was fit or not. The decision would haunt football forever. The match that broke a legend from the opening whistle. Portugal's defenders knew exactly what they wanted. Not the ball, Pelé. Every time he touched possession, another tackle arrived, sometimes fair, often not. The referee rarely intervened. Within minutes, Pelé could barely sprint. Then came another heavy challenge. He crashed to the ground. The crowd waited for a whistle. Nothing. Play continued. Pelé stood up, slowly, pain written across his face. Today, he would have been substituted immediately. In 1966, that wasn't possible. Substitutions still didn't exist. Brazil had no choice. They continued with an injured Pelé. He spent most of the match walking, watching, unable to help. Portugal won. Brazil were eliminated. The dream of 3 consecutive World Cups was over. After the tournament, Pelé shocked reporters. "I've played my last World Cup." He had become so frustrated with the violent treatment that he no longer wanted to return. Millions feared. They had already seen the last World Cup appearance from football's greatest player. Meanwhile, as Brazil boarded the plane home, another unbelievable story was beginning hundreds of miles away. A team almost nobody believed belonged at the tournament was about to shock the football world. The team was North Korea. Almost nobody expected them to qualify. Almost nobody expected them to score, and absolutely nobody expected them to eliminate one of football's biggest nations. Their journey alone felt impossible. Very little was known about them outside Asia. They rarely played against Europe's best teams. To many supporters, they were complete strangers. Their first match ended in defeat. Their second, a goalless draw against Chile. Everything came down to one final game. Italy, 2-time world champions, one of football's most respected nations. On paper, it wasn't a contest. Italy needed only a draw to advance. North Korea needed a miracle. The Italians attacked from the opening whistle. Wave after wave of pressure crashed toward the Korean goal, but the underdogs refused to panic. Every tackle, every block, every clearance brought them closer to believing. Then, just before halftime, everything changed. The ball fell kindly inside the Italian penalty area. Pak Duik reacted first. One touch, goal. North Korea led. For a moment, nobody inside Arisam Park knew how to react. Italian players looked stunned. North Korean players celebrated wildly. There was still an entire half remaining. Surely, Italy would respond. They threw everyone forward, cross after cross, shot after shot. North Korea defended with unbelievable courage. Their goalkeeper produced save after save. Every passing minute increased the pressure. The final whistle finally arrived. History had been written. North Korea won, Italy 0. One of the greatest upsets football had ever seen. Back in Italy, the reaction was brutal. Thousands of furious supporters gathered at the airport. Some players were greeted with boos. Others had tomatoes and rotten fruit thrown at them. For many Italians, the defeat felt humiliating. For North Korea, it was the greatest sporting achievement in their history. And somehow, their story wasn't over yet. The Black Panther. While one underdog shocked the world, another star quietly became unstoppable. His name, Eusébio, born in Mozambique, then part of Portuguese territory. He had arrived in Europe as a teenager. Within a few years, he was destroying defenders almost every weekend. Powerful, explosive, clinical. He could score with either foot, from distance, inside the box, or with his head. By 1966, the world finally understood what Portugal already knew. This man was special. He finished the group stage in sensational form. Then came the quarterfinal, ironically, against North Korea. What happened next became one of the greatest comeback stories in World Cup history. From impossible to unbelievable. Nobody believed North Korea could beat Portugal. After all, they had already produced their miracle. Surely lightning couldn't strike twice. Then, within 25 minutes, it did. North Korea scored once, then again, then a third time, 3 goals. Against one of the tournament favorites, the stadium fell silent. Portuguese players stared at each other in disbelief. The impossible was happening again. Standing in the middle of the pitch, Eusébio refused to accept it. He demanded the ball. Every attack went through him. Minutes later, he won a penalty, scored 3-1. Hope returned. Soon after, another goal, 3-2. North Korea began to tire. Portugal attacked relentlessly. Then Eusébio scored again. Hat trick. The comeback was alive. But he wasn't finished. Another penalty, another goal, 4 goals in one knockout match. Portugal eventually won 5-3. One of the greatest comebacks in World Cup history. As the final whistle sounded, Eusébio didn't celebrate wildly. Instead, He walked toward several exhausted North Korean players, helping them off the ground. A simple gesture that earned respect around the football world. By now, the race for the Golden Boot belonged to him. But one final obstacle stood between Portugal and the World Cup final, the host nation, England. England believe. Unlike previous English teams, this squad never panicked. They hadn't conceded a single goal throughout the tournament. Goalkeeper Gordon Banks looked unbeatable. Captain Bobby Moore led with remarkable composure. Bobby Charlton controlled midfield. Every player understood their role perfectly. Alf Ramsey's wingless wonders weren't entertaining everyone, but they kept winning. Quarter-final, Argentina, a fierce battle. One controversial red card, constant arguments. England eventually won 1-0. The rivalry between the two nations grew even stronger. Now, only Portugal remained. England against Eusébio, the tournament's best defense, against the tournament's best attacker. It was the perfect semi-final. England struck first through Bobby Charlton, then again, 2-0. Portugal finally earned a late penalty. Eusébio calmly converted, but time ran out. England had reached their first ever World Cup final, one match away from making history. Waiting for them, West Germany, the same nation that had produced the miracle of Bern 12 years earlier. Neither side knew it yet, but their meeting would create the single most controversial moment in World Cup history. The date was July 30th, 1966, Wembley Stadium. Nearly 100,000 spectators packed into England's national stadium. Millions more listened on radios around the world. England had never reached a World Cup final before. West Germany were searching for their second title. Everything had led to this moment. The atmosphere was electric. Flags waved. Songs echoed through the stadium. Then, only 12 minutes into the match, West Germany struck first. Helmut Haller fired a low shot past Gordon Banks. Goal. England's dream had barely begun, and they were already behind. For a few moments, Wembley fell silent. Then Captain Bobby Moore gathered his teammates. There was no panic, no shouting, just belief. 6 minutes later, England responded. Martin Peters floated a dangerous cross into the penalty area. Geoff Hurst rose highest. Header. Goal. The stadium exploded. England were level. The match settled into a tactical battle. Every tackle mattered. Every pass carried enormous pressure. Neither side wanted to make the mistake that would define history. As the second half wore on, England slowly began to grow stronger. Then, with just under 20 minutes remaining, they found another breakthrough. A loose ball bounced inside the German penalty area. Martin Peters reacted first. He smashed it into the roof of the net. England 2. West Germany 1. The crowd erupted. Supporters hugged complete strangers. Some were already celebrating. England were minutes away from becoming world champions. But football has a cruel habit of waiting until the very end, with only seconds remaining. West Germany won a free kick. The ball was swung into the penalty area. Chaos followed. Defenders missed their clearances. The ball broke kindly for Wolfgang Weber. He stabbed it into the net. 2-2. The German players sprinted away in celebration. The English players stood frozen. Victory had slipped through their fingers. For the first time in World Cup history, the final would go to extra time. 90 minutes hadn't been enough. History demanded 30 more, the goal that still divides the world. Extra time had barely begun. Both teams looked exhausted. Every sprint hurt. Every tackle required one last effort. Then, England attacked. Alan Ball chased a seemingly lost cause near the byline. Instead of giving up, he somehow kept the ball in play. His cross found Geoff Hurst. Hurst controlled, turned, shot. The ball smashed against the underside of the crossbar, then bounced down. German defenders immediately cleared it away. England celebrated. West Germany protested. The referee hesitated. He looked toward his assistant, a Soviet linesman named Tofik Bahramov. After a brief conversation, the decision came. Goal. England led 3-2. German players surrounded the referee. They insisted the ball had never crossed the line. English players celebrated wildly. Even today, people still debate what happened. Modern technology has analyzed the moment countless times. Some studies suggest the ball crossed the line. Others argue it landed just short. Without goal line technology, nobody can say with complete certainty. One thing is certain, that decision changed football history forever. West Germany had no choice. They pushed everyone forward. leaving huge spaces behind. Then, with only seconds remaining, England launched one final counterattack. Thousands of supporters had already spilled toward the edge of the pitch. Commentator Kenneth Wolstenholme looked at the chaos unfolding, then spoke words that would become immortal. "Some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over." The ball reached Geoff Hurst. He fired into the roof of the net. It is now. Goal, England 4, West Germany 2. Geoff Hurst had completed the only hat trick ever scored in a men's World Cup final. Moments later, the referee blew his whistle. England were world champions for the first time in their history. A captain's greatest moment. As the celebrations began, Captain Bobby Moore climbed the famous Wembley steps. Waiting for him was Queen Elizabeth II. She handed him the Jules Rimet Trophy. One photograph from that moment became iconic. Before accepting the trophy, Moore carefully wiped his muddy hands on his shorts. He didn't want to dirty the Queen's white gloves. It was a small gesture, but one remembered for generations. England had finally achieved what previous generations could not. Football had come home, at least for one unforgettable summer. The legacy of 1966. The 1966 World Cup changed football forever. England won their first, and so far, only World Cup. Geoff Hurst became the only man to score a hat trick in a World Cup final. Eusébio finished as the tournament's top scorer with 9 goals. North Korea produced one of the greatest upsets in football history. The battle between physical defending and creative football reached its peak. And perhaps most importantly, the treatment of Pelé sparked serious conversations about protecting the game's biggest stars. Many historians believe the brutal tackling of 1966 helped push football towards stricter refereeing in the years that followed. As for Pelé, he kept his promise for a while. He genuinely believed he would never play another World Cup. The pain, the injuries, the disappointment had become too much. But destiny had one final chapter waiting for him. 4 years later, the World Cup traveled to Mexico. For the first time, matches would be shown in color to millions of viewers. Pelé returned, Brazil returned, and together they produced what many still believe is the greatest team to ever play football. The 1970 World Cup wouldn't just crown a champion, it would create a legend that has never truly been matched. And that's where our story continues.